All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I forgot to start the recording. This is our R1 Scrum for Nefio, May 31st. So we were just going through some of the issues. I think that I'm going to just close this. Well, actually, who is this assigned to right now? Yeah, let's, Anne and Liam, I'm going to assign this to you as well. And just, so I guess there's two different ways we can approach this. One is there's the management cluster in those different environments, and then there's the workload clusters, which right now is just kind on a VM. And I think that ultimately we probably are going to need issues for doing different kinds of workload clusters. I guess what I would say is let's start with getting kind provisioned by CAPI, same as we have for GCE, working in those other environments. And then we'll bring out a separate issue on the dimension of different kinds of workload clusters. So I'm gonna just say similar issues for each environment you plan to support.
Now, I think there is two aspects here, I think, John, right? One is you can use other providers using CAPI.
Yes.
Is that what you are referring to?
That's what I was trying to say, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, okay, because that basically, it actually means creating a new package.
Yes.
Provider package and stuff like that. So that's fairly straightforward to do.
It's straightforward to a point, yes. Like to spin up new clusters is straightforward. If you want them to talk to each other across some networks, it gets a little harder. But yeah, and I know you've got some some work done on that area too. So what I'm asking is, for now, this is not different.
Because the reason I'm saying is the following: if you start looking at other, let's say, implementation of clusters, you need to figure out how they do the secrets, how they. So there is a bunch of other things that are related. So yeah, if it's just basically using cluster API and basically say go to Google or take OpenShift or VMs or whatever, that should all be fairly straightforward, I think.
Yes, using CAPI, other CAPI providers should be fairly straightforward, and the bootstrapper should work for them. But right now, I don't even want to go that far. I just want to say, like, we can do the full stack in the GCE VM. We can do the full stack in the local VM.
That's even easier. That's that's even easier.
Like, let's start there. And once we can think about so. In that sense, I'm assigning it because it's really just part of that same thing that they're already working on to support the management cluster bring up. It would be just the next step in getting the end-to-end stack working in those different environments. Okay, so and this probably should have been assigned to them too. So going back to Bala's sort of list of issues, right? There's management cluster deployment, workload cluster deployment, and then I think you had it as an epic here, right? Is this it? Yeah. Vish and I are going to talk about this later today, so that's assigned to Vish right now.
The one big thing I think we need to tackle next, John, and I posted something, is the injection and how we do it, because I realized while looking at the deployment today that we use cluster context. Right. And so in all the workload clusters today, we create cluster name. Everything is cluster name based. In the workshop, in the one summit, we use site ID, which is part of the
Okay.
cluster context.
Okay.
So in the injection, what field, because if depending on what we use, I have the feeling, or my view is that we have to change to cluster name, because that's how we. But so that means that the injection should inject a cluster context that sets the name, is the name of the cluster context. Would it be the cluster name?
Yeah.
Because there is no. Okay.
So what we'll do is the way we would handle that is in the cluster package, we add a cluster context resource, and it just gets, and we add a function to rename it to the cluster name. And so then it gets populated to the management cluster at the same time that that package does. And so then the package variant has access to that during the injection process. Does that make sense?
But the injection is happening on the free 5GC packages, right?
Correct. So they will have.
So you apply, so you apply the cluster context to the cluster, and then they are consuming it. Okay.
Yes, exactly. It gets applied to the cluster, like the other resources, just alongside the cluster CAPI cluster resource. You have the cluster context resource, which has our additional information that we need for our network functions. It's got the same name. We know it's GVK, so we can inject it during the free 5GC.
Okay, function. So then we have to change that then, right? So we have to change the package and then to do that. So because that for me the next thing, because also just to be clear, in specialization we use site ID, so we have to do a small update to the functions to use the cluster name of the cluster context instead of the site name, site ID. So it has, but I'll look at that after this call.
I think we can.
But so, and then the second thing is for injection itself. It's a, so someone has to create that PVS exists already, or that package variant exists.
For that's something the network. Sorry, you're saying the package the package for the free 5GC function, which is the thing Vish and I are going to talk about later. And then what we'll have is we'll have a package variant set which configures the injection so that it all connects back up to the clusters. Does that make sense?
So the question is whether we have that resource already and when we can start testing that, because that for me the next big milestone is to get that thing, the free 5GC, completely hydrated, that we have the deployments ready, right? And then we have to connect the workload side to that, right? So that's what I see is the next big thing, is to get that whole flow going.
So do you want me to assign this to you, and then if I don't know if somebody on the package specialization team wants to work on it with you, or
just send it to me, and then I'll ping Istior and the people on the call.
Okay. And then I think I have to say this. And then Vish and I will talk about the other one today, and we'll try and get that ready for you so that you can use it in this. I think we can probably do that before your day starts tomorrow.
Okay.
Hopefully. So that gets back to this. So that's basically that would be in order to get, this is what you're talking about. Basically, we need the injection, we need the operator. We're basically through these first two, and then we need the operator. This one should be straightforward. I believe we already have, Tal, we already have the package you said for this, or that deploys the operator.
Well, it's an old one. It needs to be updated. I know R2 is working on it.
Okay, cool. so then, yeah, so if we can get through that, then this is the one. We still have some work to do for both creating packages and configuring, setting up so the injection works. And then we'll have a working deployment theoretically. We should add, I think it looked like Denise had gotten a call going through on a manually provisioned one. Is that right?
Well, not a call yet, but then that's the direction.
He was able to ping basically between
Yeah, I mean,
SMS and UPF.
you start seeing PFTP packets flowing between SMF and UPF. So
No.
that's-
Like today, I got UE connected to UPF. So basically, I'm sending packets right now to UPF, but they we need I need to figure out how to allow them to go through N6 interface. This is Mac VLAN. It's connected to Docker network, kind network, and kind network is breached to ETH0, and there is some mismatch in networking, and it doesn't go through. But session is established
I see.
through the IMF.
So it's probably a routing problem somewhere.
Exactly, something like that.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I see ARPs from UE going to, not from UE exactly. I try to ping Google. So basically UPF tries to do ARP resolution for gateway on N6, but of course there is nothing. So I need to figure out how to stitch it to the real networking.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe, oh man, that's annoying. Okay. Do we have an issue for creating a call? I'm going to add in here.
But this is again, I used operator which we wrote in controllers to for IMF, SMF, and UPF. Other 5G functions I used just Helm, but it's not, of course, it's on the kind cluster which is not installed by Nephi, or there is no Nephi, let's say.
Right. If you get it working sort of independently, then we can try and
Exactly.
tie it together. Yeah, and integrate it.
Yeah, it's
So do you
basically, it's basically an
know,
operator. It's an operator test.
Yeah.
Right. So we do have a package that has all the other network functions in it, but I don't know that they're going to be like, we'll probably need to enhance those to be more configurable. So I want to just put that into, I want to put it as enhance. We probably need to do this because I think we said we would do it. Enhance, NF, other package.
Did someone try those packages out? That they work? Like you're
I
referencing
think
to
Filter
NRF.
did before he merged them in, but yeah. But I don't know that anybody else independently tried it.
Sorry.
Because I think
which
Denis,
other
you are
Sorry, go ahead.
If
Yeah,
they're
Dennis,
based
you
on
are-
the orange, they're based on the orange Helm charts, then it should be
Yes.
fine. If not, then I probably can just generate these Helm chart outputs and put them into packages just to update them.
no, but
Because,
so Piotr did that already. I think Dennis. So
Okay.
Piotr basically generated these from the help chart. So the question is, can we use those, because that's the one that we eventually will use in the installation.
Yeah, and then
Uh,
other thing I was going to suggest, Dennis, is if we can somehow get Poiter into this discussion, because they had the experience of making the end-to-end call with those packages. So I think probably if we can somehow work together with Poiter, that would be. I don't know
Yeah,
which
he-
time zone, whether they match you with your time zone or.
Sure. Yeah. If I don't resolve that N6 issue, I'm going to ping him and ask for help.
Yeah, I think my understanding is all these things were generated, all the packages that he pushed into Aleppo are the working ones in his environment.
Yeah, so
I
he
think,
may have
yeah,
solved
those,
this problem already.
those packages work. I mean, it works in my side. I just copied, and it's what my configuration is. So he can just compare that with his.
Yeah, we know that we know certain issues in this thing. Some of the things are hard coded. Obviously, we know that issue. Other than that, the rest of the things is a working setup.
Yeah, it may well be issues with the underlying kind setup as opposed to with the, you know, those packages. So we might need to, right, change the way our workload clusters configured in order to support that. Right? So so what we really need to do is try it on the end-to-end environment that we've provisioned. So Denny's, probably if you look in that on Slack, there's a link to a README, and it shows you, it's in the test infra thing, and it shows you how to provision one. And now it's on GCE, but mostly that's just wrapper. Like you could probably provision it anywhere. That's what Ann and Liam are looking at, provisioning it in other environments. But if you do that, then that's actually, you know, whatever fixes you come up with are going to get back into our end-to-end suite as opposed to just in your kind environment. Or maybe this issue doesn't even exist in our end-to-end suite if it's configured differently. So it's
Sure.
worth there.
Sure.
Cool.
I'm going to look into that.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
I'll
So
also ping Poiter in Slack, John, see whether he can help us with this one.
okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 2 weeks and 1 day before the release. So you know, as I say, we're making progress through this list, but there's also like user guide and things like that. So where do we stand on other items we talked about yesterday?
So before we go there, John, if you go to that list, I think in terms of, if you go back to that, yeah, thank you. In terms of this, what we are definitely promising, at least to the TSA, is the scale out scenarios were given as use cases, and we are saying that we are going to do that. So, but we already told them the stretch is the end-to-end call in the other NF configurations. So in terms of priorities, I think once the first 4 are done, should we, I think in my view, from the priority perspective, we should jump to the scale outs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So you're saying, I didn't remember that we said this one was a stretch too, or?
Yes. Yeah. Both of them are stretch. Yeah.
We said this one was a stretch, but we expected to do it, whereas the other one was a stretch and we were unsure, I guess. Yeah, that's what we said.
Just a question regarding other NFs. Are we going to add them to 35GC operator as controllers?
No.
Later on in our no. Okay.
Well,
So
maybe later on.
Later on, yes.
Yeah, not in our one.
Okay.
Hey, Denise, quick question. Did Ravi give you any link on the NAT?
Not really.
Okay.
I basically copied my running configuration with him. I deployed everything using Helm, so it works. I think. I mean, as long as Dennis is using Helm, I guess, or I'm not sure the kept packages. But yeah, it's the documentation is
for
not.
For UPF, we don't use Helm. For UPF, we don't use Helm. We use our operator, which we run.
Yeah, but I think it doesn't matter. I think if it's an N6 issue, you know, it should probably do with an ad or how you are probably even you have to kind of take the IP from the same subnet as master interface. Generally, I see a lot of the documentation, a lot of the online people have issues there, and I also had issues there. And once I fixed that, it worked for me.
Like to make maybe a suggestion, we can set up the Towards 5GS project exactly following their instructions in a separate cluster. If that runs, we can pretty easily compare config files, etc., and see what's wrong on our end.
Yeah, once it comes to that deployment level, I think they should all look alike. I don't think it should differ.
Well, there might be some difference. Yeah, we can. Yeah, go ahead.
But I will try to get some links. I mean, I'll see because as I said, it's not organized. It's like different threads spread out. So I'll see if I can find some documentation on that N6.
Ravi, just one question I asked you in Slack. Do you use kind as well for?
Yeah.
It's the same setup. It's a GCP VM and kind.
kind. Okay. So in that 172.18 IP address, is it IP address of Docker? Well,
It's a Docker node, yeah. Docker nodes E0, yeah.
Because
you just need to take an IP from that, yeah.
What I did instead, I put IP address from the subnet of ETH0 of virtual machine.
No. It has to come from the from the Docker node, yeah.
But we should also kind of know this stuff, because like for end-to-end call to happen automatically, let's say after instantiation, we need to know subnet of kind.
Yes, I think that's how. I think there are also some IP table configurations in the UPF.
Yeah.
And I think that probably does SNAT, or I don't know, the VM does SNAT. I don't know if SNAT happens, but
no, not happens in Docker does it, right? The IP tables which
exactly. I think that's where it happens. Yes.
Yeah. If
but
we
there
get
is a
everything
subnet.
working, we could potentially just have a bash script that does kubectl and pulls the NAT, pulls the data directly from the NAT. I mean, if we have it working, it will be pretty easy to automate something. Not great, not wonderful in terms of user experiences, but just to get it working.
Okay, sure.
I think the Docker node should fix your problem. Then just try that.
Okay, so all right. So that's for the end. Okay, so then Bala, I know you were gonna, or you volunteered to take on the documentation. So I think we still have time for that. Just wanted to know if you'd had a chance to think about it at all.
So documentation, I thought what Tal said, told me was more about documenting czar. That's what he used the word. What do you?
Yeah. That's what I meant. Right? Like somebody.
So do you want me to produce the documentation? Is that what?
No. I want somebody to take the lead and I just want you to go through and say, okay, here's the documents we need. Create issues for them, figure out find people to
those
work
things.
on.
Yeah, that thing is created. I created the issues.
So
the issues are there.
I wanted to recommend.
Probably, let me think through a little bit more in terms of structure. Thanks, Sean. So let me add some more content into those issues that I created.
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to suggest that maybe we can have a separate board just for documentation to make it clear.
Yeah, it's right there.
There it is. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, do you think, Tal, there are only few issues?
Well, I think different. So we're talking about a user guide. Is that the only deliverable we really want? A user guide?
User guide, install guide, and I was going to create one more thing for release notes. Three guides. Then to John's point, I will put some more structure into this.
No, that's great. I just didn't know these issues were here. Like this is fine. So we're making progress. I'm just going to move them in progress, even though from the point of view of like let's track them. I mean, we should be starting them now, and I
can. John, to your original question, yes, I can help produce some contents of this documentation, but obviously, since I'm not a SME.
That's actually not what I was asking. I was just asking what the status was. Yeah, this is what I was asking. I didn't know you had created these issues, so
yeah.
And then
I'll put some more thoughts into this, like what we could have for these documents. Okay.
Then on there's two other things I wanted to quickly check in on. One is this one. I talked to Steven yesterday, and he said he'd have a PR for topology, and he's working with Arvind on the integrating that here. So, is Steven here? Is there any update on that since, yesterday at 2 o'clock? Or what are you expecting? What's the ETA on that?
Hello?
Yep,
hello?
We can hear you. Yep.
Oh. Hello?
You're good.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. So I sent, so I have to port the things over to your framework. So we talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. In the meantime, I put the code into my personal repo and then have asked Arwen to do first level integrations to make sure that it works with ESA for the NF deploy that it would generate. It should work with ESA with no problem, hopefully. And then Arwen already has something that at least within same cluster that ESA can talk to Watcher agents in the same cluster. So the only thing left is to put Watcher agents on a workload clusters, and then ESA would be able to expose an IP endpoint for the workload cluster to access that gRPC server.
So do we have? So let's go one at a time here. So this one, the Watcher agent. Oh, this is the GR. This is the Edge Watcher. Where's the Watcher agent?
The Watcher agent.
Watcher agent should be there too. I mean, if you go to yeah, if you.
Here we go. So this has to be done, right? So we have to get this also into the workload cluster package, so that it gets deployed, after the, onto the workload clusters.
We have a workload cluster package now?
Yes. Well, we have a package that creates a workload cluster. And then we right now don't have things other than the bootstrap. We bootstrap CNI and config sync in there.
Right, so config sync needs to be installed as part of the bootstrap, right?
Yes, and that's done and that works. So then the question is, we need a package representing Watcher agent, and we're going to have a set of things that get installed after the bootstrapping. So
John, this should be same. This should be treated the same as the operator, right? So we should not use the bootstrapper for that. We should use config sync for this, right? So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's okay. But then the operators are installed only if someone selected FreeFileGC, right? So this Watcher agent is installed by regardless, right? So what's the workflow? What's the workflow?
It's package variant set, right? So you basically say deploy this package to all clusters through the PVS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for what it's worth, for Nefio R1, the Watcher agent is just part of Nefio. This is part of a Google C code for it. But yeah, it could just be sitting there doing nothing. And of course, for R2, for Beyond, we'll be thinking about all of this together and evaluate. But
yeah, it's a bit of a stretch goal for Watcher agents to start reading the status exposed by the operators and send it back to Edge Watcher or Edge ESA. That would be pretty much the tail end of integrations if we have time.
Right. Okay. Well, so who's going to produce this package here? Volunteers.
Let's do this in stages. Once we have it working, then we can assign this to whoever is appropriate. I imagine it'll be me, myself, or Stephen.
Okay.
I mean, you can assign both of us if you feel you want it to be assigned now. Can I ask, why do you prefer to send commands rather than edit? Is there a
actually, I'm fine with edit. Not everybody has well, actually, maybe we all do have access to edit. So it's really more about
permission. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I don't think this actually even is. It didn't work for me the other. It seemed to be flaky. Oh no, it did. It just does nothing.
Look at that.
But yeah, it's more about permissions. So Frau offers more granular permissions, or at least more traceability, if nothing else. So anyway, we can, in order to give edit privileges to that, you have to give a lot more privileges than.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I actually gave all those privileges to everybody in SIG automation anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, I want, on that note, nobody noticed, but last week I did a push instead to my fork repo. I pushed and actually because I have so many permissions, I was able to push directly to one of our repos. That was a mistake, which I quickly corrected with a push force, and nobody noticed. So that's wonderful.
You have that permission. Most folks don't have that. Quite.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but I abused my permission by mistake. Yeah.
Yep, that's okay. All right. Okay, so that was the watcher, and then the other. So the user guide, the watcher, the end-to-end. There was another thing I wanted to ask about before.
So is that part of the thing? I just want to ask. So when you detect a new cluster context, there's some code in the management cluster that would just install packages.
So we don't have that yet.
Okay.
What we have right now is that for bootstrapping, but we want to kind of want to reserve the bootstrapping to bootstrapping, not to every possible package. So we don't have the concept yet of, hey, here's a set of packages we want on every cluster, other than through creating a PVS, which we can do. Like we could actually provision a PVS up front as part of our initial boot up, right? If we really wanted to, but
Okay.
We haven't done that yet.
Okay. Or you can have a PVS that matches the cluster label and then just automatically install packages.
Exactly. And then every time a cluster, that's what we will do. It's just right now you need to manually create that PVS.
Okay.
But once that's created, any new cluster that comes up and matches those labels will automatically get those packages. And there's an auto approval controller that if there are things you don't want to have to approve them. And it only approves, actually kind of like this compromise, the auto approve controller is configured, or well, only implemented, that it'll approve it when it's a new package. But if you go in and you click edit and you create your own and you want to change it, it won't auto approve that. So that kind of gives us the best of both worlds, where the first things we don't have to worry about, they just go and they commit. But then if we need to tweak it, we can. Of course, it's done by an annotation, so you don't even need to do auto approval if you don't want to. But okay. So I don't know what that is. That looks like it's done.
Okay. Yeah. So those are the
merged.
this is
This
is merged. Yeah.
Sorry, that's just the GitHub automations. Okay, they're not perfect. Okay. Yeah, this isn't going to happen in this release. How do I? It's not what I wanted to do. Anyway, I don't need to have everybody on the phone for this. Okay, so is there anything else we needed to discuss, or shall we close?
Should we go to the SIG 1 meeting?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess some folks might want to go to that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, just one update. I mean, John knows this, just for the rest of the team. So we started the dialogue with the LF and TSC from the license perspective. So it is in their code at this point of time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, then go to SIG 2, SIG 1 if you want, or.
Sorry, John, could I ask a very noob question? Because we have very knowledgeable people on the call, and I much prefer to talk rather than Slack. In relation to deployment or using the end-to-end, the Nefio YAML that's there within the provision directory, is that the default Nefio YAML that people can use, or should it be customized to? Does anybody know?
The default Nefio YAML, which one?
So in the scripts themselves, it targets. Yeah, in the test infra. Sorry, in test infra. So it targets a Nefio YAML in your home directory.
That is what is being used by the end-to-end test. I think for Vagrant and for those playbooks.
Yeah, and
that's where we started. We talked about possibly other use cases, but it's very specifically supported, right? So if you want to take Nefio and deploy it in some sort of your own lab or test bed, you will have to change things, yes. And
Okay, so sorry, it's a very beginner question here, but that default Nefio YAML would need to be customized to target your own
Oh,
specific.
yeah, you're talking about this one. So this gets back to the story that the issue that Liam and Anne are looking at, like in
Yeah.
different environments.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Sorry,
think
I'm not seeing a screen share, John. Sorry.
it's not
Are
showing.
you seeing a screen share? Maybe it's just me. Oh,
Can
there
you
we go.
see that?
Sorry.
Okay, I reshared it. I don't know. Yeah, so in here, so right now, I don't even know where it is, but it's in there somewhere. Yeah, there's
But
a method.
end provision.
So
so it should be-
theoretically, yes, you should be able to
Yeah.
change you might want to change these values. The E to E is using exactly what's in here.
Yeah.
This is not used anymore. So there's two different deployment modes that the scripts support. One is the workshop code, that's the old code, and the other one is the new code.
Mhm.
This is for the old code, and probably a lot of it may well be a number of things can go away. I don't know on the Ansible side. So there's a sort of multi-phase thing, and ultimately, like when we look at sandbox demo environment versus bring your own cluster, like bring your own cluster should be fairly straightforward of like, you've got the cluster, you apply some packages and you're basically done. Setting up the sandbox environment is a lot harder because you have to set up like all the underlying OS and everything,
Yep.
which sort of assuming you did with bring your own cluster, right? So a lot of this has to do with all of that. So that's getting
so that kind of that leads me to the question. So essentially what I'm targeting at the moment is the sandbox setup, and on a plain Ubuntu VM, and I'm running into some issues, but I guess so even with the plain sandbox install, there would need to be customization to the Nefio YAML.
No, the only thing I change, if you go look at this script that it loads as the startup script, the only thing it changes is it changes Vagrant to Ubuntu. And other than that, the name. And other than that, it leaves that Nefio.yaml exactly as it is. So I would look at these scripts. It's pretty, mostly I just used the script that was already there, which is the, which I renamed to this.
Yeah.
But like all this does is change that's the only change it makes to Nefio.yaml. And then it basically just, it grabs this metadata from the metadata server, right? So that I know it's installing.
So that's called the sandbox. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it calls that, right? That's all it really is.
Got it. Yeah.
And then that does all the work. And the main thing that does in this sandbox environment, I mean, it does all this Ansible stuff, but the thing like pre-setup that it needs to do is build this GPTG module or whatever it is. It's in there somewhere.
So there's a couple of make commands. Yeah.
GTP5G.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This one. Yeah. It has to build this kernel module and load that, and then it basically just runs Ansible. So this is the old code. We're not really using it. We should probably clean it out of there at some point. But right now, this is what gets run to set up that. It runs Ansible, but then there's some things I don't really know Ansible, and some things weren't working, and Victor's on vacation, so I just manually install some things with caps, because the way the cap library for Ansible works, it doesn't support some things I need to do. But basically, it just runs a big Ansible playbook.
Okay.
I had issues before when I was running this script in one of my older GCP VMs, but I mean, it was complaining on some codes and memory thing. Then even after I think I corrected that, I reduced the requirement, but still was running into. But I think the assumption is that you need a clean VM. I think you start with a clean VM. I think this runs probably there's a higher rate of success.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of why I just did it with this startup script, right? Like then I just start with a brand new VM every time and it's magic. It just works.
And yeah, Vagrant was crashing on a MacBook. So it seems it's too the workload seems to be too intense for a MacBook.
Was
Okay,
we're
that's
just spinning up 3, 4, 5 workload clusters too. So those are the things that so the support for Vagrant and whatever, that's stuff that Anne and Liam are going to look at, and other environments. So hopefully we'll know better in answer to your question of whether other things have to change in there.
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, this is Sandeep here. I have one question on similar line. We have initially installed Nephew using one summit repo. Right now, the end-to-end is it the preferred one right now? Sorry if I missed few meetings.
Yeah, so the workshop stuff is really old. I wouldn't continue to use that. I would. We just checked in. We just merged last night or this morning. I would go to this README here in the test infra E2E provision, and this will set up a full environment. In fact, I ran it just before this. If we want to see, if you're curious, I don't know how many people, whether anybody can drop off and go somewhere else if they want. Of course, you could do that anyway without my permission. Let's see, if we look at this, let me share this screen now instead. I have to be careful sharing this one. Lots of other stuff on here. Okay. So I just, before the meeting, started one. Okay, so it finished running. The caveat here is that it's going to pull the latest image, and that there was a check-in, so that might have broken things. I don't know. Okay, so this is this is going to run with the proxying the UI. Oh, yeah, you see it. It didn't work.
You need to run the cube config command for port forwarding.
Yeah, it's there. It's here, but it didn't work. Wow. So okay, so something's broken now in the. All right. Well, I can't show it. I'll have to see what we broke, because that's something I would
It
not.
worked for me, so I was able to bring up the UI. So it's good. So
We had one merge since then, but it shouldn't have affected any of this. Anyway, we don't need to do this here, but I'll take a look at that. I have another meeting after this, but and then yeah,
So,
I don't know.
What I was asking is, like, if we have installed, then if you're using one summit installation, can that still be used to fix some issues or do some check-in? Is it reliable? I mean, is it in sync?
Depends on what some specific components, sure, but I wouldn't rely much on it. Like, it's been very substantial changes since then. So if you're talking about the UI specifically, there you're probably fine for the most part. But yeah, so
Okay.
if that's what you're talking about specifically, then you can continue to use that for now, for sure. And then, but it'll actually be pretty easy to set up this environment. And once we do, well, maybe you may want to wait till if you're not doing it on GCE, you may want to wait till Anne and Liam have figured out the details on getting it in Vagrant. I don't know what environment you're running in, but once they do, then it'll pull the new right now it'll pull the new images and stuff for the UI, the latest ones. Although if you're building them locally anyway, you're seeing your stuff. So yeah, you should be fine for UI. It just the stuff underneath it won't work.
It won't work. Okay.
But I don't know, Sandeep, if you're working primarily on UI or on other things. I know.
No,
Sean,
I'm just looking overall thing, not specific to UI.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So the point is like I can use it for some sort of a testing environment if I just want, but if I really want to check in something, then I should rely on this end-to-end testing environment to be tested first and then check in, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, I think moving to the new end-to-end environment soon, if not right away, is a good idea.
Okay.
The end-to-end environment is mainly for our CI/CD.
John, we should I just have another question. So I have a bring your own cluster kind of an environment. So I want to also like plan to install Git on that and prepare clusters. How can you someone just brief me on how it is done with the test infra code? If does the Git there's a separate cluster for Git code bases or what?
So you actually should be able to do that. Let me show this again. If you go into here, you'll see that what these Ansible playbooks do. There's two of these roles. This one installs a bunch of it bootstraps the main cluster, but then if you're bringing your own cluster, it does some things to get Git up and running, but for the most part, it just deploys a bunch of packages. So it deploys Metal LB. If you've already got a load balancer, you don't need Metal LB. It deploys Cert Manager. It deploys this Git v3. So you would probably need to customize this package a little bit because this package might rely on the Metal LB configuration being there. So this package, all of these packages are living in this repository, and you can pull them out and customize them. But basically they contain like if you wanted to do Git, yeah, you see it says use a static LB. That's in this service. What's going to happen is you're going to try to deploy this package, and you probably this won't work. This annotation will do nothing for you, which means there's a bunch of places we haven't done the DNS and all that stuff yet. So there's a bunch of places where this Git IP address is hard coded. So you'd need to go through all the packages that have that and change it to whatever load balancer IP gets provisioned for you, which if you could select it, I would do whatever your load balancer technology lets you do to select it here so that you don't have, because we don't have DNS yet, it has to kind of propagate through a bunch of places. So those are the kind of things. Go ahead.
If a while ago I did a workshop on config and Porch, and I showed that you could run Git in cluster. There's tiny little tricks, but if you really want to do that, you won't be able to use these scripts, but it is possible to have a simpler setup.
Well, it does run Git into right now in the management cluster still, but the workload clusters have to be able to reach them, right? So the workload clusters need.
Yeah, I managed to do everything. So I managed to make that connection, but
okay,
it's probably a good idea for now to use our test bed. There's just so many moving parts here.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of extra work. Now, that said, right, it would be useful if you want to talk to Ann and Liam, like that bring your own cluster is going to be something we want to do. And so we're going to need to document that, if nothing else, how to do it all. So you know, that's super helpful. It's just you're going to go through a lot of pain. So it's kind of up to your pain tolerance level.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the proposed themes for Nephew R2 is to properly handle infrastructure management. That is that you'll be able to plug in various things. So I think all of us would love to see everything running on OpenShift with Red Hat tooling as well, if they can manage to get that running. And so there'll be in the future a guide on how to plug in your infrastructure management tools into Nephew, but that is not in scope yet. We basically have a test bed, which is already a little bit complex, and we're talking about maybe expanding it to others, but it's yeah, I think that's the right way to go for now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye.